Hi guys, PJ here, back with another vehicle install video. This time we're installing an X-base camera into a BMW 2 Series. Now we're going to be installing it using the official hardwiring kit for this brand. Always a handy thing to have, comes with everything you need in the box and certainly makes your life a lot easier. Would highly recommend you get the one for your camera. Let's have a look first of all what we get in this box. First things first, we get a replacement power cable. This one terminates in a mini USB. Now there are mini USB, micro USB, quite a few other different connections, so do make sure you get the correct kit for your vehicle. The other end terminates in an earth, which you will put to a chassis bolt of some description so it earths out correctly, and then a power cable with a bullet connector on the end, which you will connect to one of these fuse spurs. Now some cars do vary slightly, so you will have to check what type of fuses your car has. There's quite a few variants nowadays. This is normally your standard blade fuse. This is for normally older vehicles, some Mercedes, some commercial vehicles. We won't be using that on this particular install. And then we've got mini blade, which is this one. This one should be the correct one for this vehicle. And all it does basically is double the fuse socket up. So it's a little bit like your household extensions where you plug a plug in and then you've got a four-way trailing adapter to plug other things in. This does the same thing. You remove a fuse, something from the accessory position circuit that is not critical, so nothing like airbags or ABS or computer or anything like that, just something auxiliary, maybe heater blower motor, that type of thing. We'll go through that a bit later on in the video. So we've got a 2 or 3 amp fuse already in here, and that's to run the camera. The inner socket here will contain the fuse that you remove from your fuse box to run the original circuit, and then this will plug in just like the original fuse, and then obviously connect the bullets together to provide the power. The last thing you get in the box is this. As you can see, the ferrite filter pops open like so. It's on a hinge, and what you do is put your cable through it, wrap it round underneath it, and then back out again in a loop, and then snap it shut. What this is for is to reduce radio interference, and more importantly DAB radio interference. Quick note, if you're having a rear camera, if you're putting a rear camera in your vehicle and your vehicle has DAB, 10-to-1 is going to interfere with your DAB. There is currently no solution for that. A lot of the major camera manufacturers, their shielding isn't up to it, so it interferes with rears. So if you're having a rear, you could have DAB interference, just a warning. Front cameras, no, not a problem, won't interfere in the slightest. 10-to-1 though, if you're having a rear, it's not going to happen unless you want radio interference. So I'll show you how to fit that very shortly. We're going to prepare the main cable for use next. As you've just seen, that's how we wrap the cable through the ferrite filter and then snap it shut. Some headlinings, depending on the vehicle, can be a little bit loose. Some are really tight and you won't need to do this. If it's loose and you think your cable is going to fall down as soon as you hit a pothole, because you're going to be tucking it up above the vehicle's headlining along the edge of the window screen, pop a cable tie around it, close it shut, snip the end off, wrap a bit of tape around it so it's got no sharp edges, or twist the end off either really. Just make sure it's not sharp because you don't want it rubbing the inside of your headlining. If your headlining is really tight, then you won't need this at all and you can just tuck your cable up above the window screen. You're normally meant to have your camera just to the left of your rear view mirror and out of wiper sweep area. Now this is the UK legality. As for the rest of the world there, whatever your region, country's laws are, you'd have to check up on. But for the UK, out to the wiper sweep and up to the left hand side of the rear view mirror is preferable, or it will fail an MOT as an obstruction. So let's go ahead, we're going to tuck this above the headline of the vehicle and then we're going to run it down the passenger side window screen pillar. So we're going to tuck it behind the plastic. And there's a quick note, if you've got an airbag running down the side, some have a curtain, some have an airbag down the side, depends on year, you're going to have to tuck it just behind. So we're going to get the thin end and we're going to tuck it just behind the airbag. You can normally pull the rubber away and tuck it behind it. Like I say, I will show you the cable running down the side of the pillar. So here we have our camera in place, the cable neatly out of the way. You don't want any cable sort of dangling, to try and get the right length if possible. Pop it up, tuck it all the way along the edge. Like I say, you can normally on a fabric headlining put your fingers under it and just sort of pull it down just enough just to tuck the cable up. And then when we get to the side here, this particular vehicle does not have a pillar airbag, so it's just going to be a case of running the wire straight down the side until we get to the dashboard. If you have got a pillar airbag down here, they're normally a white cloth, and you can just put your fingers behind them like so and just sort of ease them forward enough to be able to tuck your cable behind them and then run them down the pillar to the dashboard. At this point, I'm just going to quickly pause just to sort of give you an idea of the ideal tools before we go any further. This is what I use to put these in pretty much, every day of the week. Long nose pliers, and they're simply for removing the fuses from the fuse box. A lot of fuse boxes are recessed, hard to get to, so they're handy for that, instead of using the little plastic tool that comes with the vehicle that's quite fiddly. Some wire cutters, always handy for cutting your earth wire to length, so it's not got excess wire. Probably the most important tool of the kit is this. This is a plastic leverage tool. Okay, and you get these from eBay, Amazon, that type of place, most car shops, normally a couple of pound. And they are ideal for levering plastic trim. You don't want to leave dints and marks on it, so don't use a screwdriver, guys. It's definitely going to make a mess of your trim. Invest in one of these, or a little pack of these, well worth your money. And last of all, you're going to need a multimeter or a test probe screwdriver. So one of those little test probes where you touch it and the handle lights up. This is for checking out your fuse box, which we'll do a little bit later on. Speaking of fuse box, let's just quickly move on to it. The fuse box on this vehicle is located in the boot, and you've basically got to lift the boot floor out, and then you'll see it right at the back, near the back of your rear seat. And that's where we're aiming to get the power wire to on this vehicle. So you've got to run it the whole length of the vehicle, I'm afraid. Back at the front end of the vehicle where the dashboard is, we've run our cable down the screen pillar here. And now we're going to pop this end panel off. Okay, so it's on little plastic clips, so just be a little bit careful with it. We can show you inside there. The lighting's a bit bad. There we go. So there's like plastic lugs that we've got to pop off, and then it basically fits behind this rubber trim. So you just you can normally pull the rubber trim off like so, just far enough to pull this trim panel off. Just be aware of your passenger airbag switch, try not to knock it as you're pulling it out, and then rest this panel safely out of the way. Quick note, guys, do not unplug the connection to the back of this, because if you turn your ignition on, you'll have a fault code thrown up and then you'll have to get it reset. Leave it plugged in, it's not doing any harm. The panel will only be off for a couple of minutes while we run the power cable down the side here, and we're going to earth to this bolt here. So we're going to put the black cable to this bolt. You can either take the bolt off completely and put it behind it, the nut off rather, and put it behind it, or you can do what I sometimes do, put a ring washer over this and then another nut over the top of it to sandwich it. So on this particular one, I've chosen to remove the 13mm nut that's on there, and then we're going to use a 8mm crimp, which I'll just show you in a second. Where's the end of it? So here's the system I'm using to secure the earth wire. Like I say, we've got an 8mm crimp here. A little pause in the video there, because you don't want to do what I just did, drop this nut down that abyss and then have to get it back again. So like I was saying, let's get the washer on first, like so, and then the earth cable obviously on next. We're going to tuck the earth cable behind here, loop it out and then onto there, and then the nut back on top. So your end result looks like so. That is a really good earthing point, contacts to the steel perfectly. We can now continue to run our main power cable all the way down. We're going to go along underneath the sill panel here next to the seat, all the way through to the boot, and that's where we're going to pop out now with the red power cable. So we're going to get it through the vehicle. It will depend on how you get past your back seat, depending on the vehicle. I mean, there are different versions of this, so it's going to be a case of just routing it through the side and try and tucking it under the seat where the seat hinges. So if you've got like a seat hinge, you can go tuck it underneath, but we're going to go all the way along, tucking the cable out of the way. Now with these, sometimes when you pop them off, the little crimp, the little push thing that holds it in, stays in there. So what you've got to do is get something to pull these out, like so, or just pull them out with your fingers if they're not in very well, and then you can slide them back into the little recesses there, look. They normally do just leave themselves stuck in the actual vehicle rather than coming away with the trim, which is quite annoying, but that's the way it is. We're going to put our cable right underneath here, under the carpet, out of the way. When you're popping your trim panel back on, it's normally best to start at the far side here, so we're near the door catch, yeah? Because this one being up on the edge here, sort of pop that one in, then you can line all the rest of them up as you go along. So you, like I say, you've slid them back on. You've got to line them up with the little holes, pop, pop, pop all the way along. Same with your side panel when you're putting that back on. It's sort of hook the back in first and then tap it flush all the way around before putting your seal on. So on this particular example, what I've done, I'm going to basically chase it down the side here, but we go underneath the seat here where it meets the back, and then it pops out in the boot, right near the fuse box. Now, to make life easier, I've actually removed the rear backing panel. You don't have to, you can normally get your hand under it. They're on little clips like so, and all you do, as you can see, is pop the middle out so that it goes forward, and then shove it back in to clip it back in. Very, very simple and straightforward design. Don't lever them too much. Don't put your pry tool behind the edge here. Only the front clip section for it to pop forward. When they're in lock position, they look like that. So you've got to pull them out to make them come out. We're then going to chase the wire across to the fuse box over there and do our live connection. Right then guys, with the ignition on, we're currently showing 0 volts, yeah? So I'll get my test probe. I do a lot of these vehicles, so tend to remember what fuses to use, etc. You are looking for an accessory position. We're touching the top of the fuse. Get my earth probe to work properly. 12.03. Now we'll turn the ignition off. Okay, let's pop our test probe back on. And 0 voltage with the ignition off, which is exactly what you want. Like I say, don't use a critical circuit. Make sure you use something of an auxiliary circuit. All fuse boxes can vary with the layout and pin configuration depending on continent, the sold region, the sold spec, etc. And now we have our fuse spur in. Let's get a bit of light on that one for you guys. There we go. Please note the orientation of the fuse spur is correct, must go the correct way around. But basically we've run the cable along and we're going to connect it sort of here all the way along. We'll cable tie it and electrical tape it to the original wiring so that it's nice and tucked away. Nice and tidy. Now it's chance to go and test your camera. Moment of truth guys, we're now going to pop the ignition on. There we go. And little blue lights appeared. And there's your boot up sequence. That is working correctly and you have successfully installed your camera. Now if you've got any questions regarding installation or the camera itself, I do suggest you contact your retailer. I'm not taking any questions via YouTube unfortunately, because I did that for the first year or so and I'm literally inundated with questions every single day. I'm getting 30 plus questions. I literally haven't got the time to answer them anymore, I'm afraid. So any problems with it, like I say, contact your retailer, but if you follow the guide to the letter, you should be hassle free. Thanks for watching and goodbye for now.